Hello, anybody who's watching this, welcome to my reaction to console exclusives by Scott DeVaz. Um, I'm recording this when it's already supposed to come out because I'm an idiot and because of my sleep schedule now. So great! It's gonna be an hour later than normal, but maybe I should move hours at all. I don't know when to release videos, I just pick a random time and do it. It works fine, I don't know. I don't know if it matters, that's the big problem. Um, but anyway, uh, console exclusive has always been a thing, just period. When NES and Sega were fighting, they both had exclusives for each own, for their own consoles, and it's still going on. When games come out only on PS4 or PS5, games only come out on PC, or games only come out on Xbox One X, or what is the new one? What is the fridge one? Shit. Xbox. I don't remember. Just shitty way to name consoles. Just put numbers in it. Who cares? Now I can't remember what it is. No. Anyway, and it seems to be progressing. Not like progressing, but it's still going on as strong as ever. But consoles just fighting over property and stuff like that. Just recently Microsoft bought Bethesda, and now Bethesda games will be coming out as exclusive for Microsoft consoles. Microsoft property, I guess, which is PC and Xbox. But they're still kind of exclusive because they're not coming out on PlayStations. So let's see what this video is about, and like entirely. What points, is he on their side, is he not? We'll see. Because I don't know where I am. I kinda don't really care. Rich people definitely don't care if they can afford buff all consoles. Also Switch, I forgot about Switch. It's a different beast entirely, but anyway. If you want to help out the channel, there's a donation link in the description below. If you want to get these videos early, there's a Patreon page, and you can just subscribe, comment, like, whatever you want. That also helps. And that's free. Let's begin.
Hey y'all!
Like
Scott here. Did you know you can make any video game an exclusive? See, Scrabble for PSP may have also been on the DS, but now it's exclusive to more lore and testing. How do you get people to want your video game console?
Okay.
Blackmail and exclusive games. Console exclusives are what makes the world go around. Why somebody would actually fathom buying a Nintendo Switch. You can only buy this thing on this hardware. Easy to understand,
Infamous
hard to
2 is a
stomach,
good game.
but it's an important element of the video game industry, and without it, I'd only need one system, and the lack of a fire hazard worries
Holy
me.
shit.
Well, back in the early days of video game consoles, exclusives, while important, weren't deal breakers. No shark, no deal. Half the time, competing studios would just copy another console's exclusive to put on their own. You can't blame them because the Intellivision's exclusive games consisted of basketball compared to Atari's basketball. Now, when Nintendo hit the scene with the NES, that really changed the game and showcased how lucrative having games only available on your console was. You not only had games developed by Nintendo themselves, which by would they put those on other systems? That's disgusting. You had the third-party games, which many of the most popular were made exclusive to Nintendo's platforms. This wasn't just because Nintendo was the only real option for them. I mean, not even if they were drunk. But also because the third parties couldn't go anywhere else even if they tried. Nintendo held a monopoly on them.
Wait, I feel like Sega had only one good console at this point. They just randomly lucked out on one of them, right? On the Mega Drive. Or whatever it's called in different parts of the world. On the 16-bit console when Sonic came out and all that stuff. Sonic started, really. Huh. And the console before that is barely known, and consoles after that kind of failed. So they just lucked out on, oh, alright.
If you make games for us, you can't make games for the other guys. Which is why the Sega Master System lacked confidence. You ever get told to just be yourself? Don't. A handful of games released on different platforms back then, but the big heavy hitters like Castlevania, Mega Man, Dragon Quest, these largely stayed exclusive to Nintendo's platforms for a while, outside of the oddball personal computer versions. Ugh. Nintendo's grip on console exclusive games made the original Nintendo Entertainment System so damn popular and basically the only option. If you wanted a video game console, you wanted Nintendo. As time went on though, this practice obviously became outdated. Companies were able to release their games wherever they wanted, and we received far more multi-platform games releasing on multiple consoles owned by multiple different companies.
And a lot of them were different on each console for some reason. I don't know about these two, but there are different versions of Aladdin on different consoles as well.
Everybody gets Pac-Man too, because
well, I guess.
But that just forced each console manufacturer to put
that might be the
that
different
much
thing
more
I'm
effort
thinking
into
about.
their own in-house exclusives. On the Super Nintendo and Sega
Different game
Genesis,
entirely.
Sega and Nintendo were firing at all cylinders to make their consoles look as appealing as possible. They'd often work towards offering experiences that weren't possible in other systems. Sega created the Sega CD add-on for the Genesis, which could utilize CD quality sound and full motion
Genesis
video.
is the
And Nintendo developed chips to
big
pop
one.
into their Super Nintendo cartridges that could do all kinds of crazy 3D graphics and effects. But those multi-plat games, well, those could be special too. Sometimes they would basically be the same across both consoles, but many times each version was developed by different people and were completely different
That's
games.
what I meant.
And even when they were similar, sometimes
Oh,
one
Jim.
console's version had more content or slightly different content. Mortal Kombat on SNES may have looked and played better than the Sega Genesis version, but that version wasn't as heavily censored, and thus it was far more popular. These historic moments in gaming defined how console exclusives were treated for decades to come. Not only were they about exclusive games, they were about what was exclusively in the games. 60 minutes of exclusive content. What, are the loading screens different? Console exclusives turn us into animals.
I didn't know that was a
It's
thing,
too
okay.
made for me to buy a PlayStation when I already own an
What
Xbox.
is there?
Just to play a game that could run on Xbox, it just chooses not to. You are a stubborn little aren't you? This is a highly debated topic in gaming.
That is pretty fun, actually.
Console exclusives are good for the environment. On one hand, it increases competition. If PlayStation puts out an amazing game exclusive to its consoles, well, that's just more incentive for Xbox to wake the hell up. How do you get more people to buy your console? You put it all into a game that is legitimately jaw-dropping. So
I think it's good for the market. It's a good, I can't remember the word. I can't remember the word again. When they like fighting, it is incentive to release your own exclusive and make them better than the exclusive of a different console. But then that console has to release a better one, and like it doesn't always work out. But they still try. So that's something. Capitalism. But I think it's a problem for the consumer because they have to choose one console most of the time. And only that console. And most of the time it is being chosen by the exclusive, or like for the exclusive, whatever.
Something that becomes a system seller or killer app.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if
System
all games
seller
were
exclusives.
multi-platform, or we just had a console that played everything, then more games would be sold, and less time spent on making the consoles better, and more time spent on making just legitimately good games. Plus, it would actually allow games on the Nintendo Switch to look decent if they were played on a PC or a PlayStation 5. That looks fucked up. I can understand both sides of the argument, but let's take a look at what console exclusives are and have been over the past few decades and see exactly how we're getting all fucked over. So, exclusive games for a console, they may be only available on certain ones because they wouldn't work on others at the time.
So that's a tactic people use. I played with my friend. It's probably been 6 months at this point. Nah. In August, I think, maybe. At his house, we played Kinect, and we played that box game. I mean, it's like Kinect Sports. And one of them is box. And we tried doing it normally, but then I found out like you can do just this and win every time. And we banned that immediately. because it's not fucking fun.
Certain ones because the target demographics line up and producing multiple versions of a product can be costly, so narrowing it down to one system is for the best. They may only be available on certain ones because the developer and or publisher are the ones who make the console it's on. Of course, they only care about themselves. And then sometimes they're only available on certain ones because go f yourself. Nintendo platforms easily have the most exclusive games. I mean, at this point, they practically live off of them. The NES and SNES days are over and have been for a while. Developers no longer see Nintendo consoles as the only place to put their games, or if they make games for multiple platforms, they just have to get it running on Nintendo as well. Their systems have always had setbacks ever since the Nintendo 64, quirks that made it difficult to bring multi-platform games over, thus narrowing down the amount of games on here, which in tandem makes the console less appealing, so it increases the need for exclusive games to bring that appeal right back up. If Nintendo was a person, they wouldn't live past noon. The Nintendo 64's cartridges couldn't hold as much as the competition. The GameCube's mini discs, same story. The Wii was underpowered. The Nintendo Switch is underpowered. The Wii U was malnourished. Most of the time, I'm sure developers would love to bring their games over, but it's not as easy as you think. It's not like the only reason they don't is because the development kits smell bad. Jesus. But because of this, Nintendo relies on exclusive games more than any other company.
Yes.
They're creating their own with some third-party studios supporting them as well, and because of that, many multi-platform games historically didn't sell on Nintendo's platforms because they relied so much on exclusives. That was the reason most people bought their consoles. Who in their right mind bought Injustice on Wii U?
I said in their right mind.
I think being exclusive to a Nintendo platform gives off this vibe that all these exclusives, well, they're all part of the same family. A foster one. There's a certain feel to it.
Bayonetta,
one that makes any game exclusive to it feel dirty on anything else. Ew. I think Nintendo's exclusive games are some of the most powerful out there. Even if their platforms are severely underpowered compared to the competition,
they're very stylized.
They still succeed simply due to the library of Nintendo games. It doesn't matter if this console is garbage. It has Zelda, it has Mario, it has the games that you can find alternatives to on other consoles, but it's never the same. Even with all the kart racers available elsewhere, they're not Mario Kart, and customers know that. A game that's just like Mario Kart, but on PlayStation, that can only get a game so far, because it's obvious the person saying that would drop it in a heartbeat to play Mario Kart. Why doesn't Nintendo go third party and release their games on other
They also fail most of the times, like the PlayStation All Stars, the clone of Super Smash Brothers. I played that with a friend. I think playing it with somebody is actually quite fun, and characters you know, but it never got out. It never became big, and a lot of people hated it. So
platforms because of that. If people are willing to buy your hardware just for your games, most of the time just one game or one franchise, you'd be stupid to drop that old shtick. That's so much more money coming in. That creates an ongoing relationship with the customer. Nintendo really values their exclusives. How they started the whole only for iconography on the Super Nintendo, really hamming it up that this is the only place.
Is it bad that I read it as OnlyFans at first?
So you can play Uniracers. Go on.
That's cesspool of a site.
Games exclusive to Nintendo platforms often have that colorful, family-friendly feel. Many times whimsical and focused on level-to-level gameplay compared to cutscene-centric stories, which is why games like Sonic, Super Monkey Ball, Bomberman, Rayman, they all feel at home on Nintendo platforms. But in tandem, many series that have been around for ages, legacy franchises that got their start on Nintendo, or they were around during the NES days, series like Dragon Quest, Castlevania, Final Fantasy, Contra, Tetris, Street Fighter, these games feel very at home on Nintendo as well, and in some cases have multiple exclusive games on Nintendo, and that goes for all platforms. If a series starts out somewhere, has roots surrounding this console, chances are it's gonna stay fairly close to home. Until Child Protective Services comes by! What do you say when your child is taken away from you?
Ooh, that stings. Nintendo's exclusives mean a lot to them, which made it pretty brutal when they all went away. So that just meant they had to try that much harder to get third parties to make exclusive games on their platform. That also meant Nintendo had to publish games
now can they just buy it?
Wouldn't publish. Games like Eternal Darkness and Geist on the GameCube were
by the third party, I mean.
And then you also had third-party exclusives like Resident Evil 4 and Beautiful Joe that were exclusive to GameCube, at least for a little bit. Nowadays, Nintendo gets all kinds of exclusives, so they still feel most at home when they're max PG-13. That doesn't mean M-rated games aren't ever exclusive to Nintendo platforms. just not nearly as much as the other guys. But
Yeah,
Nintendo
Bayonetta
publishes
exists
a
on.
lot of games, a huge variety to make them exclusive on their platforms. Games like DC Superhero Girls Teen Power, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 The Black Order, and WarioWare Get It Together. What the f is this? Most companies have a pretty good idea these days of what works on
WarioWare seems fun actually. From I think Game Grumps play it, and they enjoyed it.
Nintendo as an exclusive and what doesn't. So if it
Just
fits
mini
the bill,
games.
it might just make the cut. Which made PlayStation hitting the scene that much more brutal.
PlayStation became the foster home for many series that initially started out on Nintendo once the Nintendo 64 featured poor living conditions. You live like this? When games that were always thought to be Nintendo
hate that
games
controller.
shipped over to
Hate
PlayStation,
to look at it. I never
I
played
think
it.
that made everybody
with it.
realize how much it's a good idea to butter up third parties. Now, Sony even published Final Fantasy VII outside of Japan. This wasn't just about who made the best games, it was about who pouted the most to third parties.
Come on!
Sony entered a deal with Squaresoft to make the Final Fantasy series exclusive to PlayStation systems for a while there. Did this benefit the consumers? That was a great way to measure crotches. I have a PlayStation 2. I can play Final Fantasy X!
Good for you. Keep it up.
While Sony funded a lot of their own exclusives by their own studios for the PlayStation 1 and 2, many developers and publishers came crawling to them because the other systems just didn't make sense. Thus, series like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Mega Man, Contra, Castlevania, these found a new home on PlayStation. With a good chunk of Nintendo's X-exclusives, you'd think Sony would stop there, but they did the smartest thing possible and pumped out their own lineup of games in addition to the Nintendo refugees. PlayStation exclusives on the PS1 and 2 were kind of funky. They were all over the place, which was a good thing. All types of releases for all different types of people. Most of Nintendo's exclusives can just boil down to platformers and adventure games. A lot of the other genres were exclusive to Japan at the time or handled by the third-party companies that jumped ship. Sony was funding and publishing platformers, kart racers, simulation racers, role-playing games, fighting games, hardcore sports
Yeah,
titles,
Sony
wacky
did
sports
everything.
titles, party games, music games. It gave the original PlayStation and PlayStation 2 such a varied exclusive library. This variety, though, made any game feel like it could be a PlayStation exclusive, while on Nintendo, it felt more like when a game was exclusive, it was welcomed into the family. A Nintendo fan is more likely to play nearly everything Nintendo publishes, while PlayStation fans have standards. I mean, these are all PlayStation
No.
IPs. There's nothing wrong with that, it's just a different feeling from Nintendo's approach. But by the time we reached the PlayStation 4 era, PlayStation exclusives finally
I love
had that
Horizon.
distinct feel that makes an only for PlayStation game stick out. Hope you like the back and necks. Something changed with the
I love 'em.
PS4 because most of Sony's exclusives all felt like variations of The Last of Us. This was a huge critical and
What?
commercial
Really?
success,
Okay.
so I'm sure they looked at the cinematic game with engaging and deep gameplay on top of a gripping dramatic story and said, that's our version of the Nintendo 2D platformer. Days Gone was Sony's Ziplash.
Sony will publish games that were all
Like, I feel like it goes farther than Last of Us. It's probably because of Uncharted. Like, Uncharted more cinematic than, like, let's say God of War. But it's still kind of there gameplay-wise. Like, just God of War has more gameplay than that, but not Last of Us. I don't know.
over the place in terms of style, genre, age rating. They weren't like Nintendo in the sense of a lot of synergy between games, but there was still a little bit, enough to make each game feel like a PlayStation game. Not a ton, though. I think Sony had more variety, though, but that variety meant that not a lot of PlayStation fans cared about everything exclusive to the PlayStation brand. Nintendo fans,
Well, it's not a bad thing.
they'll play anything. But it's kind of depressing to see just how much Sony has scaled back on focusing on those experimental titles that they released on the PS1, 2, and 3, and mainly just focus on games that are fundamentally inspired by whatever their developer Naughty Dog is releasing.
Hey, these are amazing games, and I'm not gonna fault them for doing what obviously works. Though after they were so experimental with exclusive games before, it's a bit disappointing to see all their games, as quality as they are, go down a road where some of them are starting to blend in with each other, which is a sentiment I hold to Nintendo as well, which focused on 2D platformers a bit too much there. But you know who doesn't have this problem?
It's alright.
Xbox. Because they have a whole slew of others. What kind of feel does an Xbox exclusive have? which is why this made no sense. Xbox was a bit similar to Sony in their early days, going for as large of a variety as possible with their exclusives. Shrek. But unfortunately, most of these were just sort of one or two offs. They didn't leave much of an impression. The only one that really stuck was Halo, the system seller. This is why the Xbox is still here today.
I think Halo and
There were
Gears of
still some
War.
quality exclusives, but they mostly weren't anything to write home about. So Microsoft acted accordingly and just said, I don't care anymore. We're rich. Buying Rare, a studio known for their excellent Nintendo exclusives. This was a bold move, and I think it made console exclusives worse. This showed how everything can just be bought out. Why build your own teams when you can just steal somebody else's? Of course, it's not really stealing, and some studios deserve a buyout because in some cases it guarantees stability. But Nintendo, Sony, and Sega, all to some extent, worked on building up their own amazing development teams to create exclusives that feel like they are definitively Nintendo, definitively Sony and Sega games. Microsoft just buys pre-existing studios, and that's why this is their exclusive lineup. What the hell is this? There's no feeling of synergy between these games. You know, that shows variety, but it's hard to really be an Xbox fan and care about more than half of their exclusives. And as things rolled on, Microsoft ended up sort of just milking the stuff that worked, and the opposite problem occurred. Now, everything looks the damn same. Just put out the stuff that worked and do a random new IP every now and then. It's always Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Super Lucky's Tale, Halo, Gears of War, Forza.
Xbox exclusives have no rhyme or reason to them. Microsoft just buys out studios or games with exclusivity deals, which, you know, sometimes buying exclusives is okay because, you know, sometimes the developer or publisher needs money, but a lot of the times they don't. Like, BioShock was exclusive to the Xbox 360 for a bit. Microsoft has been trying and trying to get an exclusive lineup that isn't just Gears of War, Halo, and Forza, but the lack of synergy between any of their exclusives does not help. When I said most PlayStation fans don't play all the exclusives on the console, that is 10 times more true about Xbox fans.
Microsoft always brags about how this is the biggest exclusive lineup of games we've ever had. Yeah, because have you seen your lineup before? The thing is, they aren't counting true exclusives here because what happens when you don't have enough good exclusives to combat PlayStation and Nintendo? That's cheating! Something I see more and more is one of the console manufacturers just buying exclusivity rights to a third-party game. A third-party game that would most normally be on every platform, which is just dumb. There's no pride in this. It's not like, damn, it's good to be a PlayStation fan because I can play Final Fantasy VII Remake dozens of months before everybody else. Wow, you worked so hard owning a console.
That kind of works.
Company just...
That works with most of the exclusive of PlayStation at this point. Like, it's not like it's not said that it's gonna come out here and then a year later it's gonna come out on PC. It just, like, God of War came out on PlayStation, then a couple years later it's coming out on PC. Same with like Detroit, Bloodborne. No, rumored. Bloodborne is rumored for now. Horizon. What else? Days Gone? Did that happen to Days? I don't know. I don't care.
Paid to have this exclusive for a few months. Wow.
Money.
Sony's been doing this a lot with the PlayStation 5. Games like Final Fantasy 16, Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo. Like, come on. These did not have to be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. I don't even think most people look at these as PlayStation 5 exclusive games because they're so ingrained into my mind as Square Enix and Bethesda titles. And on top of that, it's not like these games wouldn't have been made if they weren't paid by Sony. The games like Bayonetta 2 and 3 are exclusive to Nintendo platforms. And that's because without Nintendo, nobody would even think about combining Bayonetta and numbers. Street Fighter V was exclusive to PS4 and PC.
Maybe that would have been better.
Sony helping to fund the game.
I don't know. I haven't played 2 and 3.
Been a Street Fighter V, or at least at the time that it came out. So that makes sense. Rise of the Tomb Raider on Xbox One doesn't. Microsoft even started advertising Lara Croft as one of the faces of Xbox for a second there, right next to Forza car. Holy shit, it's the car from Forza! These exclusives weren't earned, they were paid for, which is mostly just a waste of money in my opinion. These games would have come out on multiple platforms, mind you, but Sony and Microsoft just buy the rights to them to say they wanted to bring this game to their consoles players because they deserve the best. They would have gotten them anyway, you jerks! All that happens is these games come to other platforms eventually anyway, so like, Was it
Yes.
really worth it? Guess it was, because I bought Deathloop on PlayStation 5. Damn it. Timed exclusives are garbage.
Don't drop it like that.
Who
I'll have to buy
wins here?
another
You
one.
get satisfaction knowing only your kind can play Dead Rising 4 for a year until it comes to PlayStation 4? Everybody give a round of applause for these people. They own an Xbox. Xbox does a lot of these timed exclusives, but more
Yeah.
recently they shift over to a strategy involving their exclusive games coming to PC day and date with the Xbox release. And that's something you notice across the whole industry. A shift towards embracing the PC as not a competitor, but a partner in crime. It's pretty obvious you aren't gonna pry people away from their PCs. I said people. PCs are never gonna overtake consoles because, man, half the population doesn't even know how to operate a printer. You'd think they want to use this to play FIFA, so why not just release your games on
Yes.
PC as well? Xbox spearheaded
I've
this
seen
change,
people
with
like
Sony
that.
following suit, releasing some of their games that have already done their business on PlayStation on PC. Not only
Like FIFA and World of Tanks. Fucking nothing else.
is it incredibly odd to see a PlayStation franchise like Uncharted or God of War with Microsoft Windows listed as one of their platforms, but it's even stranger to see the Microsoft logo on a PlayStation game and vice versa. Microsoft started publishing a select few of their games they own on competing platforms, most notably Minecraft, and Sony owns the developer who makes MLB The Show, which finally came to Xbox in 2021. Talk about a strange series to be exclusive to a console. You're telling me the Major League Baseball equivalent to Madden and FIFA was only available on PlayStation? That's not fair! They finally wised up, and while a PlayStation-owned studio was still developing the game, MLB The Show 21 released on Xbox consoles. You kill it! Exclusives are simultaneously becoming less lucrative and more lucrative for these companies. On one hand, they're doing more releases on not only PCs, but competing consoles. Though on the other, Microsoft, why did you pay for Yakuza Like a Dragon to not be on PlayStation 5 for 4 months? That's just petty.
Yeah,
Huh.
a lot of console
Yeah.
exclusives.
Yes, it is. I think timed exclusive is a good thing. Like if people want, they can, or like already have a console or want to get a console, they can, and they can play the games much earlier and like not get spoiled or anything like that, and just enjoy the game as is. But if you don't want to buy, you don't have money to buy a console, like a lot of reasons could be for not doing so, you can just wait a bit and then buy a game for your PC.
Just feel more
Why
like
not?
dumb ways to make your customers feel better. Like, is there any real reason for this to be exclusive? Outside of giving me a reason to scream at Xbox owners?
There's still competition in the air, and it's called exclusive content. If you
Oh,
play
shit.
Avengers on PlayStation, you get Spider-Man. What is this called? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Console exclusive content is either completely irrelevant or unbelievably
Yeah.
unfair. Like, you're keeping one of the most popular
That is
superhero
very
characters
dumb.
of all time exclusive to a certain console. Firstly, that ensures that character won't be nearly as fleshed out as he could be, considering it's not on every platform.
Yeah, it's
Secondly,
kind of
I
becomes
don't like
not
this.
canon.
A lot of Ubisoft games had a
Non-canon.
deal on PlayStation consoles where you get an hour of exclusive content. I wonder if anybody even knows what this content is half the time. And like,
Yeah, I
really,
have no
an
idea.
extra hour of content? I had fun for an hour longer than you. Take that, Xbox. What about when DLC is exclusive for a limited time?
We win?
Exclusive DLC. So, first off, wow, because I made the right choice on which console to buy, I am rewarded with being able to buy something the other players aren't. Wow, impressive work, Scott. Fighting games get bad with this kind.
Okay, when I said, let me rephrase that thing. When I said that timed exclusives are a good thing, it not when you buy rights for it. You know, not when it's made by a third party that doesn't belong to, let's say, Sony. And then they release it for a year only on PlayStation because Sony paid them a sum of money, but the game is kind of ready to come out everywhere. That's not a good practice. But if it is your how's it called, in company studio, something like that, when that's the studio that makes the game is part of your company, or at least in with a proper contract to make a game only for your console, and then they'll make a year to actually make adjustments to it for it to come out on other ones, then it's fine. Or a year or two, it doesn't matter. Like the God of War, it just yeah, I think that is good. Making a game for one specific console is much faster than making it for everything, because you don't have to look through optimization enough and change the code and stuff like that. So yeah, but not when you just here's 100 mil. Do not release it on that peasant PlayStation console or that peasant Xbox. Fuck them. No.
Kind of stuff, lacking characters behind different consoles, either as timed DLC exclusives or just flat out, you can only play this character on this console. Sometimes this can be kind of cool, most notably Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. Each console got an exclusive character. But you can never pit Link from the GameCube version up against Spawn from the Xbox version, or Heihachi from PS2, which that's literally what fighting games are all about, all the different matchups. Now, while there's problems with this tactic, it was still really cool to get exclusive characters via each separate platform. It really did take advantage of the fact that this game was
Just
a
thinking
multi-platform game. And then Sony bought the exclusive rights to Soul Calibur 3, and that just threw that idea out the window. And sometimes it just makes the other consoles irrelevant. Street Fighter Cross Tekken had 5 characters exclusive to the PlayStation versions. Why would you even bother with the 360? I think it's a fine way to play the game, but if you want to play a fighting game, you probably also want to play with all the different characters and be able to fight all the different characters. And then there was Mortal Kombat in 2011. Kratos was exclusive to the PlayStation. My god, Sony, what is your problem? Yeah, this stuff is cool. Like, that reveal trailer showing Kratos, that was amazing, but it just overcomplicates things and makes one version of the game almost worthless. But this is what gets people excited.
Maybe they could have made them free. If you're playing on PS3, then you get Kratos for free as a DLC, as downloadable DLC, downloadable content. But like on other consoles, you could have made it a pay to get Kratos. That would have been more fair than just them not having it at all.
This does it.
IMO.
Wow, Mario and Luigi costumes and
IMHO.
Rayman Legends and Rocket League. Like, that's kind of cute, but to any Nintendo fan that seriously said, that's it, I know what version I'm gonna get. Holy shit, man, I'm sorry. I mean, these things are pretty bare minimum stuff. Zelda items and suits and Skyrim on Switch.
Yeah, if it's just the
Super Bomberman R.
skin.
Then you get the exclusive
cares?
bonus levels and Shovel Knight on
Bonus
Xbox
levels
and
is a-
PlayStation, and it's like,
is a
these are
bitch.
so cool, god damn it! The more I look at exactly how much goes into exclusivity rights with certain games, the more it bugs me. Like, Call of Duty isn't exclusive to any platform, yet Microsoft had the advertising rights with it. So whenever they show Call of Duty, it would be on Xbox. And then Sony took that over a few years later. It's like, what's the point? That money could go into making your own amazing exclusive or working with a third party to get something made that normally wouldn't have been. Instead, that trademark Nintendo corner or Xbox stamp or PlayStation font means too much to these companies. Sometimes I think exclusivity can hurt. Like, the Resident Evil series was exclusive to GameCube for basically that whole generation, and because of that, not as many people played it. Rise of the Tomb Raider being on Xbox One honestly made it so not as many people really talked about it in comparison to Tomb Raider 2013. Monster Hunter Rise is awesome on Nintendo Switch, but it being an exclusive does limit its visual potential as a sequel to the PS4 and Xbox One game Monster Hunter World. I think exclusivity...
But I think if you look at it from the perspective of the studio that makes the game, they get more money just so they have to work less and not release the game on other consoles. For them, it's just a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
makes sense under various contexts. Sometimes some games only really work on one piece of hardware due to a certain controller or accessory or the amount of power necessary. Maybe you want to make a smaller game and handheld makes more sense. Maybe that's all you can afford to pick one console to develop for, so you have to make it exclusive.
Yes,
but when
that's
we get
fine.
down to this kind of junk, it just needlessly complicates things. This is more about bragging rights than it is about selling
Yes, it
games
is.
and consoles. It's a cheap blow to competition when these companies could be spending time actually developing amazing exclusive games, but no, let's pay Ubisoft to spit in our game.
That's at least 60 minutes of fun right there.
At least that's spit, and not something else, some other human little liquid. Anyway, this is a good video. Showing off all the sides, kind of positive, negatives, all that niceness. All of that. Let's leave it at that. Literally. But anyway, thank you, anybody who watched this. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye. Have a great life. As one of us has to.